Welcome to Little Bracket of Horrors, the pod that puts the fight in fright.
Welcome to Little Bracket of Horrors. I'm Derek,
I'm Shelly.
and we have a special guest with us today, Quinlan.
Yeah.
What's up, bud? How are you doing today?
I am doing great. I'm excited to be here and to get to talk about spooky things in the midst of spooky season.
Yeah, it's kicking off.
Just a little background. We found Quinlan because me and Quinlan worked at Great Movie Ride together, as so many of my friends.
That's awesome.
Come about.
Okay.
But even then, we've always kept in touch. Social media is great for that. That's the only reason I really keep Facebook is all the people I met at Disney throughout the years, people from all over the world. But even through that, Quinlan does like a 31 movie challenge every year, and me and my sister started getting involved, and he works really hard to outlay a good selection of horror movies during spooky season. And I think he still does it with his wife now, and keeps the, I think you guys have like a hashtag you use, Strike Squad or something like that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, no, it's funny you mentioned that. I feel like a bum because I haven't posted our list for the year yet, but we have started it. And this year, a few years ago, we settled in on 50. So we would start in September after Labor Day. And so we have 50 movies that we watch. And my wife is a huge fan of the Halloween franchise. So we always rewatch the Halloween franchise when we get to the end of the month. So yeah, it's a heavy lift these days once we get to this time of year. But what's more fun than watching scary movies?
Absolutely. I mean, we're all year round squad over here.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I mean, to take on the Halloween franchise is a daunting task. So kudos to you guys for that at the end of October.
Yeah, it's we take delight in the ones that are great. And we find amusement in the ones that are, let's say, less great. But like we get to Halloween 6 every year, and it's one of my favorites, even though it's a terrible movie, because Loomis is hilariously like unhinged once you get to 6, and we're stopping Michael Myers with rocks on the ground. I mean, what's more fun than that?
I do have to thank Quinlan because I haven't. If it wasn't for his list, though, I wouldn't have watched half of some of the obscure things that I have seen.
Okay,
so.
Nice.
And I think Sherry was saying she originally watched Saint Maud because it was on Quinlan's list.
Oh, there you go.
So full circle moment for you right there.
Perfect. Well, Quinlan, whenever we have a new guest on, we always like to ask them some questions to give our listeners a bearing on you and your horror background. So we sent you some questions. Are you ready to go?
I am fully prepared.
Awesome. Totally prepared. Ready to go. All right. So first question is, what's the first horror movie you ever saw?
Yeah, this one's tough because I was afraid of everything growing up. And actually, it's a teaser for question number 2, why I was afraid of everything growing up. We'll get there. But so I didn't watch scary movies until I was like a teenager. Like I avoided them. I was afraid of them. However, as so many people, including Shelly, I am a person who did theater growing up. I was in a production of Oklahoma with a group of young people.
Wow.
So we're all teenagers, and we all went over to somebody's house. This is just after my 8th grade year, so I think I was probably like 13. And they all wanted to watch Scream. So we sat down and watched Scream, and I had a girlfriend who was there, so I had to act like I wasn't terrified. And so like Scream is probably the first horror movie I distinctly remember watching, like beginning to end. And it's really funny because now I look at Scream and I'm like, well, it's scary, but mostly it's funny. But at the time, of course, like that killing the boyfriend on the porch, that really got to me.
The Scream movies, yeah.
That's a great introduction.
Yeah.
That's a good starter film. So
Ghostface is one of our better killers of our time.
Yes.
Us geriatric millennials.
I was gonna say modern, but then you threw geriatric in there, so forget what I was gonna say.
Elder millennials.
All right, so yeah, that's a great kickoff movie. So what's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you?
Okay, so I will say there is some irony that Scream was my first movie. I don't know if you know, and I think I'm in a safe space to say that I am both a horror movie nerd and just like a film nerd in
Cool.
general. Like my degree is in film, so like this is
Oh,
a
wow,
passion of mine.
nice.
Yeah, yeah. So I grew up in Gainesville, Florida, and based on also being a geriatric millennial, if that's what we're going with. I was about 5 years old when the student murders were taking place in Gainesville. If anyone doesn't know, there was a serial killer in Gainesville years ago, and I happened to live right across from campus. My parents worked for a church that supported the students at UF. So I actually grew up in the midst of the story that then inspired the first draft of Scream, because Scream was based off of the student murders in Gainesville. It was all about, because they started to institute curfews, and so the idea was like, how do you deal with a killer in town, and how do young people respond to it? And then of course it developed into that kind of meta movie that it wound up being. But you know, it's the thing that I probably didn't even have the consciousness, being five, like how much do you know of what's going on around you? But I knew everybody else was afraid. You know, everybody else was scared. There were people who I knew who were very peaceful people who like were carrying guns everywhere they went, and like young women were not allowed to travel by themselves. And so it's funny because when I was first reading your question, I was like, oh, I don't know if I have an answer. And my wife looked at me and she's like, yeah, you have a really good answer. So yeah, definitely the scariest thing.
It's always funny to look back to our like younger years when social media wasn't present. So you're like, it's kind of like, how did I know that those things were happening? And it's those little things that you do pick up on as a child, how your parents reacted to things, or how, you know, the world around you. That's the only way you know. Now you can open a web browser and find out instantly everything that's going on in the world if you wanted to. So yeah, very cool. Well, not cool for the people that like died and stuff.
Intriguing,
but it's interesting to tie it into like, that was the first horror movie you ever saw.
Yeah.
And it's based off that serial killer that you were actually there to experience.
It was funny because we covered Scream earlier this season, and I did digging on background and found out about the Gainesville murders and stuff, and I thought, wow, it tied into a place right in our backyard, you know, us living in Florida. So how crazy that you grew up amongst that madness. Yeah. So that's, you know, that kind of ties it all back into the podcast.
Yeah.
Look at us being clever.
Yeah.
They call that a callback or whatever.
Yeah. All right. So what would you rather be bitten by, vampire, zombie, or werewolf?
All right. So I thought about this a lot, and I actually debated about this with my wife, who disagrees with me. But I said werewolf. So
we got another one for Team Werewolf.
Hell yeah.
I was going to say, having listened to a few episodes, trying to, you know, do my homework, make sure I was prepared. I know that the two of you feel the same about werewolves. So, I have I feel like it's a very American reason for why I want to be bitten by a werewolf, because like I'm used to, like, I've got to grind out like my work hours, right, so that I can support like the fun things and like the rest of my regular life. That's what a werewolf does. Like I got to put up with like the full moon. You know, I've got this stretch in my life where I'm going to turn into this monster. But the rest of the time, I'm just, you know, I'm a person the rest of the time. So that's a pretty good, you know, compromise, I think.
I like that.
And there's a way to end it that's a little bit like, if you wanted to, like, you're going to age, right? I would imagine werewolves do get older. They don't stay the same age. Everyone who's picked vampire also, the only reasoning they have is like, oh, you get to be sexy.
Carrie said immortality. Because she fears death. So she was the only one that went that route, but everyone else
You mean logical?
Yeah, logical, yes. But yeah, everyone's usually like, they like the sexy aspect of it. So
yeah, but there are some very, I mean, again, you know, if we go to the broader, like there's some very unsexy vampires out there. And immortality is a curse. Right? Like it's a terrible thing to live forever. So yeah, no, I'm going werewolf.
If you look at Interview with a Vampire, I mean, the little girl, the kid, like, I mean, you're a child forever.
Yeah, if you're a child, when you get turned, how fun is that? You know?
Exactly.
Limited. That's
exactly. And what was that movie that we watched? The Foreign Worm?
Thirst?
Yeah, that was not a sexy vampire.
No, he wasn't.
In the least.
He balding, but with long hair. Not a good look.
Like a skullet.
Skullet. Perfect. Yeah, so, you know, it's not always across the board sexy. There's certain ones that stand out, like your Christopher Lees and all that stuff. But yeah, so good. Team Werewolf. We're back on top.
I think
I'm
we
guessing.
are. Yeah.
I should
We
go
should
do the
tally.
stat. Yeah, we should do the tally and check the stats. But we're just gonna say for sake of this conversation, werewolves on top. All right. So who do you think wins in a fight? Freddy, Jason, or Michael Myers?
Okay, so I try to put some thought into this. We just watched. My wife had only seen one of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, so we just watched that franchise for our this season, our Strike Squad list. Oof, that's a rough franchise. It stretches. Let's just say that one gets really unpleasant and bleak at times. But so Freddy definitely has like an advantage, right? Because he's supernatural. So like we saw Freddy versus Jason. He's probably the one who wins in a fight. But I have one exception, and if it's Uber Jason from Jason X with all the nanobots, I'm taking Uber Jason. I don't think anybody's beating the nanobots. They're gonna win.
Yeah. Two guests in a row went with Jason.
Jason, yeah.
Yeah. One for silly reasons, they shared the same name, but then Quinlan with some cold hard facts.
Yeah,
no pun intended.
Yeah,
on
right.
Jason X.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Hey.
Thank you for bringing up the best kill from Jason X. Why is it the first kill? I'm not sure, but yeah.
Exactly. So, final question: what's your favorite scary movie?
Okay, so I'm totally cheating. I've got two things I want to throw out here. So.
Nice.
The first one, I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1974 is the greatest horror movie of all time. Like I think I watched it with a girlfriend like on a sunny afternoon when I was like 15 and was so uncomfortable and so frightened. And I thought, this is amazing. So I will always go to bat for TCM as the greatest horror movie ever made. However, because I am a fan, as Shelley points out, I like to think that I'm a horror advocate like yourselves. I like to recommend things. So if I'm like at a bar talking with a bartender, that happened a lot. Like I go and wait before the movie starts at the AMC and I'm just getting a drink and I'll talk to the bartender. I always recommend the same movie, and it's called Chopping Mall.
Oh, yes.
We love Chopping Mall.
We have talked about bringing it on the pod. It's probably going to end up in our bucket next year, and if we land on it, we're totally bringing you back.
Yes, please.
Awesome.
I love Chopping Mall. It's ridiculous. Like but it's everything that I want a ridiculous 80s horror movie to be. And funny enough, I had a professor at UCF when I was studying film, and she had worked as a PA on Chopping Mall, and I came into class one day wearing my Chopping Mall shirt. And she looked at me, she's like, why the hell do you have a Chopping Mall shirt? That movie's terrible. And so we got to talk about the production. And let's say that maybe she didn't enjoy her time on the movie, but she's glad it still has fans out there.
Yeah.
It's so good. Even me and my sister, we'll turn it on.
Yeah.
I mean, there's other horror movies. Well, I will never pick them up again.
Yeah.
Frozen. We watched that in the last episode.
Lake
I don't
Mungo.
need to. I don't have to pick those up again. But for some reason, the entertainment factor, and I watched Chopping Mall due to Quinlan's list.
Oh, cool.
A lot of ones, I think the sleepover one, I can't think of the name.
Oh my gosh.
Something Massacre. Sleepover Massacre.
Slumber.
Slumbers.
Yeah.
Slumber Party Massacre.
Yes. We watched that.
So much
Thriller
fun.
Killer, yeah.
I think I watched Sleepaway Camp for the first time, maybe based on Quinlan's list. It's just, there's those fun 80s. You go in not expecting too much, and if you just enjoy the ride, it makes it all worth it.
Yeah, I saw Chopping Mall like 2 years ago. I watched it because a podcast I like a lot was covering it, Gag Me with the Chainsaw, and it was just a total blast. It was like so much nutty stuff. It's an easy watch, and it's a fun watch, and I think the rewatchability of that movie is very high. So, the fact that you've watched it multiple times makes total sense.
Yeah, and there's no chopping. There's no chopping involved.
There's a sweet robot though.
I love that robot.
So thanks so much for Quinlan coming in again, answering those questions. We'll get into Saint Maud here in a second, but before we do that, Shelley, you watch anything scary or anything scary happen?
Yeah, I had my first visit to Halloween Horror Nights last night of the season, so
Yeah.
pretty exciting. I have the ultimate horror night ticket, so we have every night of the event, but we're calculating our visits. I'm gonna make sure I get my money's worth.
There you go.
But so that was cool. We didn't do much because I spent the day at Hollywood Studios, so we literally hit two scare zones. We ate at Minions Cafe, which we haven't tried that yet, and did one house. We did Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
Yes.
Which we watched the movie, which I'm thankful we did, because if you don't know the movie,
Okay.
you would have, the house is kind of like it's the whole movie.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm making my way through the Insidious franchise. I have not seen Red Door before, so we're watching Last Key right now. And we watch Quiet Place 1 and 2. I've heard you don't have to see a day one for the haunted house.
Okay.
But I'm a completist, so I'll probably watch day one.
Nice.
Still. But
yeah,
that's my scary movie watching lately and scary events.
Yeah. What about you, Quinlan? Anything scary happen, or you watch anything recent?
I have. So I should add, my wife is like 2 weeks from giving birth to our child. So we've been trying
Mazel
to hit.
tov.
Yeah, thank you. We've been trying to hit the haunts before our baby arrives. So we have in the last couple of weeks, we've done Horror Nights a bunch. We've done both Howl of Scream in Orlando and at Busch Gardens in Tampa. So we've covered a lot of ground, and I will echo Shelley's point. You definitely want to see Ghostbusters before you do that house, but it's a really solid house.
Yeah,
it was not. We hit all the people. I've heard if you get it in on cash change, it's not great. That's the hard part with Horror Nights. Always, if they are, if you hit it at that wrong, they're going on break and bringing in the next cast, you'll not get the characters, but. They have all every single character in there. It was really cool. But we hit it at a good time where we got to see everyone. What's your top haunted house at Horror Nights so far, Quinlan?
I mean, I'll be honest. Insidious is it's an all-timer house. It's one of the best that they've ever had. And Insidious sets itself up well for that type of experience. Like, it has good monsters and it is a scary franchise. So it's one of the better houses. Though I will say Slaughter Cinema 2 is a really good time.
I got to do the scare cam in Slaughter Cinema 1. They did like a social media thing, and I won a chance to go through with a scare cam.
I think I remember seeing that.
Yeah. I love that video. But
as do I.
We're hitting Hollow Scream. The podcast fam is going next weekend.
Yeah, Carrie's wanting to watch Frozen Empire, the Ghostbusters movie.
Yeah,
because
we're
of the
going
house.
at the end of the month.
Yeah. So we gotta get that in so she can enjoy herself.
Yeah. And know what you're seeing.
Yes.
I even told the other people we have a little late birthday trip at the end of September to do Horror Nights for a couple nights. And my friend isn't big into watching scary movies. She's actually really terrified to even go through the Insidious house because of what people are saying on social media.
Oh, yeah. They always play that up.
I think they played it up a little bit, but our friend Jen went through the house this weekend. She said they are a little bit in your face. They don't really care about personal space in that house. So
we're far enough removed from COVID where
they're
now back
like,
in our faces.
Cool, we can really scare people now. But that stuff doesn't bother me. But she won't watch Insidious or Quiet Place. But I told my friend who's coming in to do Horror Nights for a couple nights, I said, you have to at least watch Frozen Empire. And it's not like a scary movie.
Yeah, it's Ghostbusters.
It's Ghostbusters. It's fun.
Yeah, I agree. I've been watching a lot of stuff. Ian's been actually like neck deep in the soccer stuff, so my evenings are spoken for. But I did a while back watch P2, which was written by Alexander Aja, the guy who did High Tension. So,
okay. Yeah.
Which I love that movie, so I went in with high expectations and really looking forward to it, and it was absolute garbage.
Not great.
No. Like, Wes Bentley's in it, and he's like the evil security guard guy that's working in the garage, and he traps this girl and stuff, and that's it. Like, there's no hook.
That's the movie.
Yeah, that is the movie. I was waiting for a hook, waiting for something great, and there was a couple like gross moments, but it's not enough for a horror film that's, a slasher stalker guy where it's like anything worth checking out. And I was highly let down by P2. I was so hopeful with Alexander being attached to it, writing it especially, and it was just it fell so flat for me, and I was heartbroken. So
what a shame.
I know, a real shame.
I was gonna say that one's set at Thanksgiving. Is that right?
No, it's Christmas. Because she's trying to get to her sister's house, and she gets locked in the building and then locked in the garage and all that stuff.
I was going to say, I have almost put it on some holiday list, and I was trying to remember. As soon as you said it, I was like, oh, yeah, I've almost put that on my, it's Christmas.
Yeah.
And so here, let's watch something scary. But I've never pulled the trigger, and I might hesitate to do so now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe not.
Yeah, just, there's so many better movies out there. It's one of those movies at the end where you're like, why did they bother? Why it doesn't feel like this was a passion of anybody's, and it was just something to do.
Yeah.
So why did they even do it? So, yeah. All right. So I think we're ready to get into St. Maud.
We can do it. I'm ready.
All right, so we like to kick this off with a segment called Dig Up the Bones. In this, I introduce the movie and give a brief summary. Saint Maud is a British psychological horror film released on October 9th, 2020. Directed and written by Rose Glass. Other credits include a bunch of short films and a 2024 release, Love Lies Bleeding. Music by Adam Bazowski. Other credits include Here Before, Out of Darkness, and The Wasp. Cinematography by Ben Fordsman. Other credits include Out of Darkness, Love Lies Bleeding, and End of the Fucking World, which was on Netflix. Have either of you seen End of the Fucking World?
No.
I watched it a couple years back. It's just two crazy teenagers in love doing crazy violent things. I enjoyed it a lot, and if you're down and you got nothing to do, I would totally binge that on a Sunday afternoon, because that's exactly what Carrie and I did. Special effects supervisor was Scott McIntyre. Other credits include Stop Motion, The Autopsy of Jane Doe, and The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Production companies: Film 4, BFI, and Escape Plan Productions. Distributed by Studio Canal and A24. Sequels, prequels, none. Budget was $2.5 million, and then box office was 1.6. And I know this came out like they tried to have this come out around COVID, and it kept getting pushed back, and I think that might have something to do with the bad numbers at the box office.
Yeah, I also show that it's 2019, so I'm wondering if that was when it was originally completed, but COVID kind of killed its release.
Yeah, I think it got pushed back a bunch, and then I think it got a limited release, and it got released in the UK only, and then it went to like Epics or whatever it's called, the VOD.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so not so good. But Rotten Tomatoes score, 92% on the tomato meter, and then 67% on the audience popcorn meter. Starring Moyford Clark as Maud. Other credits include Lord of the Rings of Power TV series, Crawl, and Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Jennifer Ellie as Amanda. Other credits include Zero Dark 30, The Wolf Hour, and Pride and Prejudice TV miniseries. So both of our lead actresses were in adaptations of Pride and Prejudice, so that's pretty cool. Liz Fraser as Carol. Other credits include a ton of English series, TV series, and then The Gentleman. Lily Knight as Joy. Other credits also include a ton of English series. All right, so Saint Maud. After a tragic accident, a caregiver, Maud, moves into the hospice field and becomes obsessed with saving the soul of her dying patient, Amanda. The two women couldn't be any polar opposite of one another, and tensions rise to a fiery conclusion. So we landed on Saint Maud last week. Initial reactions. Quinlan, I'll throw it to you first. When we hit you up, how did you feel?
So I will say this is my second time watching this film. I watched it for my list back. I think it was 2019, maybe was my list. It must have been later than that. 2021. I would say, because it did get hung up for a couple years.
Yeah.
So this is A24. So anyone who really likes action in their movies and like big events, this is not your movie.
Yeah.
This is very much that. How do we make a scary movie with tone and good acting on $2.5 million and then pay it off with some existential dread in the back end of the film? And so this is a movie that hits really well for me. Again, a part of the reason I'm here to talk to y'all today is because I have a background having grown up in churches and having worked as a religious educator in my life. So I have a lot of feelings and relationships with the experiences that Maud has in the film. So I feel very strongly about this film. I really enjoy it, but this is not for everyone, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
I never seen it. It was a Derek pick, so I always kind of dread those. Just because we've seen some weird stuff come out of the bag based on Derek's wide span of...
My net goes very wide. Right. Yes. I like
very
them all.
wide.
I like them all, yeah.
But I did know that I was really interested in finding someone like Quinlan who had either religious beliefs, religious background, just because of the notes that... Just from reading the synopsis, knowing that this woman believed so greatly in that she could save these people. I wanted to see someone's thoughts that really familiarized, because I grew up in an Episcopal church, but like I went in elementary school, I didn't, and we left before I even hit middle school barely, so like I didn't have my whole life or like was really deep in it. My parents were really casual with religious beliefs. I know, Derek, you really have no religious background for the most part, but
just when I was a kid, it was all like on our own past that, but
So I was interested in getting someone's, because I think I'm going to see the movie completely different from someone who has a background with it. So I was glad Quinlan reached out and was like, hey, I was like, you sound perfect. And I know you love horror movies. So
it was perfect. So we were super excited, obviously, for you to join us today with your background and getting your perspective on, a film that is so, the tone of it is heavily involved with, religious aspects. For me, I did not know anything about this film until I think I was watching like the Fangoria Awards on Shudder. I think it was like 2022 or something. And Saint Maud was just like winning all these awards. I was like, what is this film that's absolutely cleaning house at the Fangoria Awards? So I went and checked it out. I thought it was something different that I hadn't seen before. I enjoyed it immensely. And this year in a podcast, I was like, I'm going to start, when I created my list, I was like, I'm going to start putting some of my favorite recent horror films on a list. So this was one of them, and I was excited to dig into it with you guys.
I'm ready.
Let's do this. All right, so next up, guys, we have Feasting Fiends, and this is where we get into the topics of pros, cons, characters, dialogue, and then we finish it off with our favorite kills/scares. So, Quinlan, would you please take us away with your pros?
I think the strongest pro in this movie is cinematography, because the question in the film really comes down to, is Maud having experiences that are supernatural? Is she having spiritual inspiration? And the camera does a lot to try to mislead us and then also suggest it. So I don't know if y'all have read, but the director has said she wanted to make a film where you could interpret it in either direction. I think the ending suggests maybe you should only interpret it in one specific direction.
I know.
But I do like that throughout the film we are given perspectives visually through the cinematography that really does make us question, like, is there a larger power in play here? So the cinematography is exceptional, and when you think about, this is a $2.5 million movie, that the visual effects are really quite strong. And I had not seen that the team had worked on Autopsy of Jane Doe, which is one of my favorite scary movies.
Great movie.
I think, like, I will specifically call out the scene where Maud is picking at her hand. It's a very simple scene, but it really drives home that physical discomfort that we need to feel in that moment, so that when we do get to some of the other things that she does, we're teed up for what we're not seeing and having that visceral response to it. So I think those two things really stand out to me, both the visual effects and the cinematography, as the strongest elements of the movie.
Yeah.
I hate body horror. I hate it.
Very uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable. I can barely watch that scene.
Oh, yeah. This was full of a few of those moments, but
for sure.
Okay.
All right, I'll get into it.
Cool.
I will just go right to. I had as one of my pros too is that I thought the way it was shot, the cinematography was really well done. There were some really interesting angles, and I like how they did use the cinematography to kind of show you a little bit what was going on and then like cut it away, and where you weren't getting the full picture, to Quinlan's point. So I 100% agree with your thoughts on the cinematography. I couldn't well, you said it much better than I probably would have said it to begin with, but I'm going to give the acting overall as a pro for me as well. There was a lot of B characters who I could have thrown out the door, but I think like even the party goers really added to the whole scenario of what Maud was going through in her mind.
Yeah.
But I think they all did a really good job, and especially with Amanda being like that good versus evil baseline. But I also really like the soundtrack. I like the overlying music. It wasn't too overbearing, but it did add to some of those scenes, especially, when she had her, I believe it was the drunk night out, and she came home and basically, she thought demons were expelling from her body. I mean, I think she was just throwing up, but from drinking too much, but
she was getting pure.
That music really added to like that overall ambiance of that scene. So those were my pros for Saint Maud. What about you, Derek?
So I enjoyed the story, and I think what it says about human tendencies. I was intrigued and entertained by this newly converted religious woman who finds like a soul to save, even though the soul is unwilling to participate. And it made me think about how, a lot of people may be damaged by something in their lives, and then they turn to religion and use it maybe in like an aggressive manner towards other people to convert them. So I thought that aspect of the film like definitely held up a mirror to society in some ways. But then, like you guys said, the performances of Moyfred Clark and Jennifer Ellie as Amanda and Maud, I think, this was essentially a character study, and I think Moyfred she carried a lot of that on her shoulders. Even the parts where like she was like feeling God and having those almost sexual experiences, her facial contortions were like nuts. And I'm sure they used some sort of like special effect on it, but still in those moments, her physical work was amazing. And I think with Jennifer Ellie as Amanda, she played the character who was certain of death, but then she also balanced like these moments of defiance and then moments of like being fragile really well. So between those two, I think, this movie was going to sink or swim with their performances, and they killed it. And then also to, I guess to the cinematography point in those like uncomfortable moments, I thought the sound design was like really, really good. During the roughest moments, especially, the scenes of, the cracking of the chest, the pulling of the scab, like, and this movie has like a baseline of calmness. So when that happens and we get the sound design, it punches through so hard. So also, I got a laundry list here, so bear with me. But I also really enjoyed the self-narration of Maud. Like, she was almost having these conversations with God, and we were like getting to eavesdrop on him. But it showed that maybe she didn't grasp really what Catholicism was about, and it was her own form of it, because she was looking for like absolutes, and she was looking for like physical confirmations of what she wanted from God. And I thought that was interesting. She also became like an unreliable narrator, which I think pulls you into the movie because, you're not sure which moments to trust and which not when you're taking a ride with a woman who's going crazy. And then, that was my pros.
Nice.
Let's go into cons. Are you ready, Quinlan?
I am. All right. So I will say, much like Derek, there really isn't much that I don't like about this movie. It kind of fits a lot of my checkpoints for what kind of movie it is. However, so if I was looking, I would say there are two things that could have been done differently. Maybe it makes it better. One of them, which it feels very strange to say this at 85 minutes, but maybe it's a little long. Like there are times where I think the film could be tighter. And I think that is part of the danger of, when we talk about runtime requirements. Like, I don't feel like they needed to fit more story in, but I don't know that I needed as much kind of lag time. There were a few points at which I was thinking, oh, we could tighten some of this up and really watch the descent of this character go just a little bit quicker, and it would ratchet the tension up in those final scenes just a little bit more. Because it does, it's A24 horror, right? It's going to slow down. It's going to make sure that you have time to eat your popcorn and check your text messages in the theater, because that's what A24 horror does, because it takes its time. But aside from that, the only other complaint I might have, and it's the same thing, like, how do you ratchet your tension up more? I think that some of the violence, when the actual physical violence is happening, the sound design's so strong, the visuals are really good. I think we could have leaned in to make people like Shelley just that little bit more uncomfortable.
It much worse, yeah.
So I'm gonna break out like a holy grail movie here as a reference. Like, I don't need you to go to Martyrs level of punishment, but there's a reason that Martyrs has the reputation it does. It really punishes the audience. And I think when you push your audience to that physical discomfort, it's going to make more of a lasting impression. Where I think Saint Maud is very easily forgotten because there aren't that many moments where you're really stopping to say, oh, I don't know if I want to keep going with this. And I think that would make it just that little bit stronger.
Yeah, Martyrs is, that final third is most intense and most violent final 30 minutes of a movie. But it's also with a purpose. So it's not, people give a lot of things like the torture porn title, but Martyrs is, there's a reason for all of it going on. It's part of the story. It's not just hostile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Shelley?
I think like my biggest thing is I didn't see it as horror so much, but I mean, we have this conversation all the time. What defines a horror movie? A lot of people didn't think last episode's movie was technically horror, but more like suspenseful or whatever. But I think like everyone can look at horror differently. I just didn't think that this had any kind of, besides like the stuff that made me cringe a little bit.
Yeah.
But that can be in any kind of movie. I don't know. I'm watching a lot of like Insidious and things that make me jump and like jump scares. I guess that's kind of what I enjoy about horror times.
Spooky creatures,
I mean,
the design,
this is a different kind of horror, or maybe I'm grasping it a little bit, but I also think the story needed a little bit more. I think that at times, and maybe to Quinlan's point, those lulls, the dialogue was lacking. And it left a lot up to like your imagination to decide, which sometimes I say this on lots of episodes, give it to me on a silver platter, like throw it in my face. I wanted to see maybe a little bit more of Saint Maud, why she got to where she is. Where was she before? They showed us these little flashbacks, but never really went to those flashbacks. But then again, A24 does like to do that a lot in their movies, like let you decide what the characters are feeling or how they got there. But yeah, I just wanted a little bit more, like just give me a little bit more of where she got to where she is. They flashed her like almost looked like she was in a mental institution at one point.
Oh, in the beginning?
Yeah. We really never, I never connected to that. Maybe I'm missing something, but I just never got a connection there. But
yeah,
those are my cons.
Yeah. The beginning scene, I think she was a nurse before she went into the hospice, caregiver field. But yeah, what you guys said, A24 does like to leave it up to interpretation. So I could totally see how that's like a misguided moment for you. But for me, for my cons, first, the rape of Maud in that sex scene, I think it was important, but we already reached the important aspects of that scene when she was, on top of the guy and that chest compression flashback happened. What was supposed to happen in that scene where, she was out living this life of Katie again, and she was living secular life, and she was already broken in that scene with that flashback. So the fact that the gentleman finished it afterwards and she said no, it made an already dark and depressing moment that much more dark and depressing, which wasn't necessary in that scene. So I think in that scene, the chest compression happens. She has she sees the vision, and that's it. So I didn't think it was necessary. And then I will say, as far as like the film not having enough, there was one scene that I was begging for more, and that was the Amanda and Maude final scene. I loved when Amanda turned into this devilish being, and I wish we got more of like a back and forth between the two of them, but it was over just as soon as it began, and I was bummed out that we didn't get more between those, and that was like the conflict of the movie. Here was, the rise in conflict, here's the climax of it, and it was probably less than a minute. I didn't clock it, but I'm assuming it was less than a minute, but it just flew by so quick, and it would have been such a great scene to maybe make it last a little longer. So yeah, those are my pros. Let's move on into characters, which should take us forever. All right, Quinlan, go ahead.
Okay, so really, when it comes down to it, you all have kind of touched on it, there are two characters really in this film. Like we get a little time of Joy, we get a little time of Carol, but they're not whole characters. They're just reflections of our main characters. But Maud is a fascinating character. Like I think you earn the runtime based off of that performance and the depth of that person. And I think Shelley touched on something important. That initial scene without context, you don't know what you're looking at. And it's dark, it's hard to see. Like the body on the table is so mangled, like making sense of that without any context is tough. But it really does lead us into, okay, what's going on with Maud? And, obviously that's going to be our entire journey. What I do love about Maud as a character is, and I think this is where I should add some context for everybody in terms of myself. I am a certified youth minister. I have worked for Catholic churches as a youth minister. I've done religious education since I was like 12 years old, because when my parents needed somebody to fill in, they'd be like, hey, Quinlan, can you go take the second graders? Like that was my life growing up. So strong background in the church, strong background as a person of faith and spirituality. And I will tell you that Maud as a person is the kind of thing that you see all the time in churches. Derek, really, you teed it up perfectly earlier. When people are broken, when people have things that have just overwhelmed them and they don't know how to make sense of who they are or what their life is, they often will reach to religion because it's that foundational, like I can say, these are the rules. And if I follow these rules, then I will be good and loved and safe and all of these things. But the problem is that religion doesn't actually make your life better. it's having a relationship with goodness and an acceptance of who you are that makes your life better. So if you just start to align yourself with rules, now that's going to put you at odds with people at all times. And we see that happen with Maud. She's a person who is in constant judgment of herself and everybody else around her. So then once Amanda comes into her life, and Amanda is the opposite, it's that my life is falling apart, I'm going to die, and so I'm falling into hedonism. I'll just be all of the things I want to be when I want to be, because I'm stretching and reaching for joy anywhere I can find it. And so those two people obviously can't connect. And then on top of that, Amanda exploiting Maud's religious behaviors just to create some moment of connection. Really, it's funny you mentioned the rape with the man at the back end of the film, which is so brief. Like, it's such a short moment, but really, if you look at what Amanda does with Maud on the couch when they're in their religious ecstasy, their spiritual whatever, like that's almost a rape-filled moment as well, because what she's doing is she's taking Maud's emotional state and exploiting it in a physical way that really is horrible, even though, of course, we as the audience know probably Maud will be a much worse person down the line when we get into the rest of the action of the film.
Yeah.
But the two of them could not be more opposite in terms of how they relate to the world.
Yeah. That was beautifully said, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
What about you, Shelley? Yeah.
I definitely, I think I put Maud and Amanda were the star. And as I noted earlier, I felt like the partygoers was almost like one character as a whole.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who really created this tension between Maud and Amanda to kind of kick off where we were going with the film. It allowed Maud to grieve the loss of Amanda almost, and go out and, she got lost. She said she was lost. So I really think Maud and Amanda, they're our main souls in this movie. One good, one evil. Again, I can do a little without, like, the man that was in the house when Amanda got drunk that one night. Like, what was even the point, like, of having a character like that? I mean, it got Maud back to the house. That was about it. And I think it did allow maybe for Maud and Amanda to grow in their relationship at that point. But yeah, I really thought Maud and Amanda were really strong, and the actors themselves did a really great job.
Yeah. In this movie, with us just getting into it, they were more than enough. We didn't need those other characters almost, but Maud was obviously broken and traumatized character, looking for a purpose for her suffering. And, I think with anyone who works in the medical field, like a nurse or doctor or something, there might be this guilt that builds in them when things don't go right. So I can see, in that scene in the beginning where Maud is just in the corner, just absolutely devastated after the traumatic event. I see that guilt as like a kickoff for her spiraling. With the combination with her and Amanda, just like we said, the polar opposites of each other. And Amanda was such a deceiver. She was poking at Maud, and she was almost like expediting this craziness that was going on. She even gave her that William Blake book.
Yeah.
And then when Maud was like doing research on him, it was just another thing to add to Maud's reasons as to why her path was true, is that this guy did all this poetry and artwork, and at the same time despised organized religion.
Yeah.
So that was exactly Maud's interpretation of what was going on. Here's another reason why I should be on this path. So I think, with it just being the two characters and the relationship, it was the success of this movie. So go ahead.
And just to, like, I guess sidebar, maybe even what Quinlan was saying about people in organized religion, that's kind of what scares me about the world sometimes. And, like, people who do go so far and think that, like, God saved them, where it's really, it is essentially them saving themselves, but they believe so deeply in a higher power. Not that, like, I can't say that I don't believe, and we've had these conversations before, but yeah, I mean, you see some of these videos of people in church and, the hands in the air preaching, and they're going through it.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff does scare me. And people like Maud scare me. Like, they're so deep into it. I mean, they're kneeling on popcorn kernels. They're putting spikes in their shoes. To, they're punishing themselves because they had a moment of lapse of judgment, or, thought that God wasn't doing what they should be doing. It's like, can we be religious and still, or, like, believe in a faith out there, be Christian and still, like, roam about this earth, not to the extreme of what Maud did,
But it is very true that is a real terrifying aspect, because you do see people who, like, subject themselves to this pain, but then they also aren't above subjecting others to that pain to try to gain this pathway to whatever heaven is for them. So, that is in society a very real and a very scary aspect of people who are maybe crazy themselves, and then they're just using religion as like this jump off point for their craziness. So yeah, I agree totally.
That's
with
what
that.
got us out of the church. Is my parents went to like this retreat, and then they got back, and people in the congregation were like walking up to them and whispering the name of the retreat in their ears. Ooh. And my parents were like, "Yeah,
what?
No, we're out.
We're here.
We're gone."
That's crazy.
Because and I'm going to use the word cult. We joke about it sometimes, but it's borderline cult behavior in these religions sometimes. And that's going down a completely different route. But that's what gets scary about people who believe faith so deeply sometimes. Mm-hmm. And not to knock it. Go ahead, Quinlan.
I was going to say, I think you're hitting on something that's important in terms of, and I should say, I am not a person who will ever be here to advocate like everybody has to join a church. Like if you like going to church, that's great. If you don't go. That's my view on it. But I love that really you're hitting on why do religious stories cross over into horror so frequently? And it's because belief, and especially blind belief, is frightening. Mm-hmm. Like you believe in this thing, but you don't have anything tangible to reach out and say, this is why I have this belief. And that's very dangerous. I don't know, did y'all see Ty West made The Sacrament, which is based on Jim Jones and he had the cult down.
I have not seen it yet.
Oh, you haven't seen it yet?
Yeah.
Great movie. You'll enjoy it. I think based off of you like this one. Because really, in the end, what's frightening it's not the supernatural power, though obviously like we watch The Exorcist, then it is. But it's that belief that people have that really, Rosemary's Baby is frightening because of the people she encounters who have this belief in this evil entity. Exorcism of Emily Rose is frightening because of our balance of do we believe this or do we not believe it? Mm-hmm. So horror crosses over into those territories so often because of what do we believe? Are we willing to go and hurt ourselves, hurt other people in defense of that belief? And that is absolutely the danger of organized religion, without question.
Yeah.
Great conversation.
I like our sidebars.
Yeah, I like
it. They're good today. All right, so let's move on into dialogue. Quinlan, what do you got?
I think Shelley mentioned it before. The dialogue is sparse, and I think Derek maybe mentioned it too. The idea of the voiceover being used to kind of fill some of that. But the dialogue, I will say, is authentic, which I appreciate. I never felt like characters were saying things that they wouldn't say, because that takes me out very quickly in movies where I'll be like, oh, this is not a natural conversation. I'm watching actors read these kind of poorly written lines.
Yeah.
But in this case, everybody felt like they were saying things that were true to who they were, which is really strong. The two, I believe, is y'all actually pull quotes, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So my favorite quote from the whole movie is when Amanda looks at her and says, "You must be the loneliest girl I've ever seen." I think that really, that's the film in a nutshell. It's that Maud is isolated. Maud does feel abandoned by her life, by God, by everybody she touches. And here's this person who's willing to call it out. Yeah. And so that's where we get that turn in the late stage of the film. But I mean, the one that Maud says that really expresses kind of her whole drive is never waste your pain. Like that's not an accidental line, the way that they highlight it. And of course, the way that Maud embraces pain as some sort of cleansing experience, which is a very dark and misguided approach to religious fervor.
Yeah, that never waste your pain, in the fact that it's like constantly throughout the movie. She says it to the homeless guy in the beginning, but then when she's cutting up the pictures, the William Blake pictures, and she's like, there's an aggressive way to it. It's like, never waste your pain. Here we go. Things are getting crazy. That was a great one. What about you, Shelley?
So I did mention before, I do think it kind of was like a fill in the blank thing. I did appreciate too, like, I believe it was Latin that the god...
Welsh.
Yeah, was it?
It was Welsh, yeah.
Welsh,
yeah.
The language?
It's one of my fun facts.
Fun facts. Yeah, I didn't look it up. I just was assuming maybe it was Latin. Because
I mean, most of the time in like religious movies,
that's what it typically is.
I don't understand this. It's like, it's probably Latin.
Yeah, so I appreciated all those monologues that either was God speaking to her or her speaking to God. But one of my favorite lines was from Amanda. Amanda said a lot of things that weren't directly, you know, hey, Maud, you're doing this kind of lines, but like,
Yeah.
so I did appreciate a lot of Amanda's dialogue. And one that I really liked was take some responsibility for your actions. You're here because you are alone. If you're a true believer, he would be enough. But it's clear now that you're as weak as your faith. So.
Right to the heart of it, really. Yeah. That was a great line from Amanda. I like it. I have 2 lines. I have a quick line from Amanda and then sort of a monologue from Maud. But I thought this line was kind of telling from Amanda. It was when Maud came back from when I forget the dude's name. He was hanging out and she was talking crap that he had like hair plugs. Yeah. And Maud was like, "Oh, I didn't see it." And Amanda just said, "Well, no one sees what they don't want to." And I think that said a lot about Maud because she was seeing all these delusional things that were signs from God, and she was wanting to see them. So I thought that line was hit the Maud character right on the head. And it was like a quick little line. It wasn't a big monologue or a big moment. But to me, after rewatching this a couple times, when we came to that line, probably in my 3rd or 4th watch, I was just like, oh, man, she summarized Maud pretty quickly there. And then my Maud monologue.
Your monologue?
My monologue. But yeah, this was after Amanda called her savior, and that was another moment in the film where Maud's purpose was found. So it was this whole reborn part. But she had a conversation with God, and she said, "Father, thank you. Now don't get me wrong, palliative care is noble work, but I always knew you had something more planned for me. It takes nothing special to mop up after the decrepit and the dying, but to save a soul, that's quite something. Your presence graces the air, and I feel fuller of your love than ever before, more than enough to share." So she was getting ready to share all that love with Amanda. I love that monologue. It was the beginning of something, a beginning of the conflict, I guess, in the movie between these 2 characters. And great moment. Are you ready to move on to the favorite kills or scares? Huh? You ready for this?
I'm ready.
You ready to go? All right, Quinlan, what do you have?
Okay, so there's what are you picking from? There's not that many moments, right?
Yeah,
so I will say, in terms of what really sticks with me, like visually from the film, aside from the ending, which I think is masterful, which I know we're going to talk about in a minute.
We'll get to that.
That hand picking scene, I mentioned
Back
it earlier.
To it.
It is, again, sometimes the best things in horror films are the simplest things. It's the things that anyone can relate to. I've got a hangnail. I have a scab. I have something, and the skin just pulls. It's such a visceral, tangible thing. Oh, that is so uneasy as a film. I should say, as a film goer, to watch that, and I love it.
Yeah. I was waiting for it. I was waiting for the gag.
It's just so bad.
Yeah.
Like the teeth. Anytime the teeth fell out.
Oh yeah, teeth stuff.
It makes that noise.
That makes the hair stand up on my arms. I agree. No teeth stuff. All right, Shelly, what do you have?
I like the end one. I know you're gonna get into it. Obviously, it's a great. I like the ending. So, yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, cool. For the moment when Amanda turns into the devil, zero indication, everything was calm, and then out of nowhere, boom. And I know, we can get into this more later, but it was a delusional moment, but it caught me off guard, and it began that scene that was like one of my favorite scenes in a movie, and it actually did jump scare me. Like, the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, shit. Like, I physically jumped back in my couch. Like, I was not expecting it. And another scene that, we were getting led into a moment that was going to be, I wouldn't call it a jump scare, but it was a grotesque scene, was that scene with the man. But obviously we were getting flashbacks. We knew something was going to happen. But even when the chest compression started, it was still horrifying and it looked gross. And it was another moment in the film where I was just I was taken aback by it and surprised that they went there. So those are my 2 like scary-ish moments, I guess I'll call them.
If I could add one more, when that cockroach
do.
I thought was going to fall into her mouth.
Oh,
I was terrified.
Yeah, she did look. She was looking up at it.
And I was like, they better not.
She would have devoured God because that was a physical.
But then it turned out cockroach was God.
Yeah, exactly. But all right, so that takes us through favorite kills and scares. Now it's time to get into Final Cut, and this is where I tell the ending of the film, and we discuss and give our ratings of 1 to 5 stabs. 1 stab, no redeeming value. 2 stabs, bad. 3 stabs, mediocre. 4 stabs good, 5 stabs masterpiece. After attempting to resort back to her old ways and it goes horribly wrong, Maud stumbles back to her home. She pleads with God and is soon taken over. Fireworks outside soon grow silent and she is lifted off the ground and is reborn again. In the morning, she cleans up her apartment and claims revelation of her saved self while putting tacks in her shoes to have a walkabout. She then does more research on Amanda while stating that she should have expected resistance because nothing worthwhile comes easy. Maud stalks and finds Amanda's new caregiver, Esther, and storms off when she finds that Amanda is ever closer to death. That night at her apartment, the god cockroach shows up, speaking Welsh, and confirms Maud's intuition to save Amanda's soul and promise they will be together after she passes her last test. In the morning, Maud starts reading herself as Joy shows up unexpectedly. She apologizes for bringing up the past the last time they talked, but Maud kisses her on the cheek and blesses her before kicking her out so she can fulfill her purpose. That night, Maud sneaks into Amanda's house with a bottle of her holy water and finds her resting in her bed. Amanda apologizes for being unkind, but as soon as Maud starts dousing her in the holy water, she becomes agitated and reveals she faked their shared godly experience. Maud sobs as Amanda turns into a devilish being and throws her across the room. Battered but not dead, Maud grabs a pair of scissors and bludgeons Amanda Beast in the neck, killing her. In the morning, Maud awakes with translucent wings and walks to the beach with something inside a plastic bag. With a vortex overhead and onlookers looking, we see Maud singing while pulling out the flammable liquid to douse herself. With glory to God and a flick of the lighter, she starts glowing radiantly while the witnesses on the beach fall to their knees. As she stares to the sky with love and accomplishment in her eyes, we get a sudden cut to Maud engulfed in flames and screaming. The end. So Quinlan, how did you feel about the end?
Okay, so I love this ending because from a faith-filled person's perspective, the most terrifying part of the film is that Maud is having this religious experience where she's released, and now she's this, angelic heroine and caregiver, and all the people are falling down to worship her as she is, going to transcend. And then we smash cut to her, on fire and screaming, which is great. Like, that's the most. It's like, oh, good. Okay, y'all didn't think that was real. Okay, good. And I think it's so well set up over the course of the film because with all the spiral motif that we see throughout the film, there's constant spirals, whether it's in water or the clouds or whatever. And we know that this character is losing it and she is spinning out of control.
Yeah.
And that the language that she's hearing is Welsh. I think that's one of those we're Americans and we don't know things moments where, because the actress is Welsh, if you were in England, you'd recognize her accent and you'd be like, oh, she's hearing Welsh. God wouldn't speak to her, to Shelley's point, we're used to God's going to speak in Latin or Aramaic or something. Yeah. So it's almost a clue to her going crazy is what's happening, that it's in Welsh, not in this, a more ancient language. But the visual of that final shot is just incredible. It's so short, but it really does. It punctuates it perfectly.
Yeah, I think it's probably a second at the most, maybe half a second. It's so quick, but yeah, great. Shelley, how did you feel?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that whole her dumping the lighter fluid on her and lighting herself on fire, it was a great kill. Not only that, I feel like even though it wasn't real, Maud in the end felt that she had reached her highest potential for God, and she even had all those people on the beach there for her. Yeah, great ending. I actually really like the ending. I didn't need more than that.
Nice.
Lit herself in flames.
Tied it up in a bow.
I like it. I don't need to know more. Sometimes a movie ends and I'm like, I want to know what happened after this happened.
Yeah.
But no, I thought it was great. Again, Maud reached her highest potential for God, and but in the end, she really just lit herself on fire, which is the irony of all of this.
Yeah. So for me, when I first watched this movie, there was this balance of supernatural and psychological. I didn't know if what we were seeing with Maud's physical acts that were going on, if she was really experiencing anything, if God was real in this movie and these things were happening. So when that final scene came, and being the short amount of time it answered all my doubts about what was going on, and it tied this up in a nice little bow. And and rewatching it now this time, it was just as enjoyable the first time. So yeah, I love the ending. I think we're all on the same page. You ready to stab it?
Ready to stab it.
All right, Quinlan, what do you stab Saint Maud?
So I'll give it 4 stabs. As much as I love it, I do think it is a little bit light, and certainly if we're going to put it through the horror lens, it definitely comes up a little bit light. It doesn't become a horror movie really until the final third. So that's what keeps it from being a true masterpiece. But I do think it's an excellent movie, and if you like that kind of slow burn horror, it's definitely worth people's time.
Nice. Shelley, how about you?
I'm going to give it a very strong 3.5.
Yeah.
I don't ever have to watch it again. I don't need to pick it back up. I am a huge fan of A24. Everything from, their non-horror to, because they did like Spring Breakers and they did
oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
the one about the teen thieves or whatever that I can't remember the name of it, but I love A24. So it gets really high marks in that essence. Again, I just didn't think it was true horror. Yeah, it had some scary elements, some, uncomfortable moments. And I just think they needed to kick it up just a little bit of notch. But I did overall enjoy the ending, how they wrapped it up. Those last 30 minutes, obviously. And, but, I guess I'm giving it a one little more mark down for, me not ever wanting to watch it again. So if not, it would have been a 4.
Yeah, which is
if
fair.
I would pick it back up,
Yeah.
I think I would have given it a 4, but I just don't think I need to see it again.
Yeah, what speaks to you?
Because it is slow.
Yeah, and I can totally see people watch this the first time, they got what they needed, they don't need to see it again. Like for a lot of people, this not being something that's a rewatch,
Yeah.
I could totally see that.
Like they could have even cut out the friend Carol, the friend that comes
Joy?
to our apartment
Joy.
towards the end. They
Yeah.
could have cut out every scene with her, and we would have gotten the same result.
She was just something from her past, but we were already getting her past with the flashbacks and
The
all that stuff.
cockroach
Yeah,
had
the cockroach.
more
Yeah, the cockroach
to add
Yeah, he was more
than
connected
she
to her.
did.
Yeah. But all right, so I will stab it, and I give it 5 stabs. I loved it the first time I saw it. Enjoyed digging into it more for this podcast. I just think it's a beefy movie with the characters, and the depth that they have, and the unhinged moments. Though they're not a lot. I think when they come, they punch you right in the gut. So I love this movie immensely, and I give it 5 stabs. And actually, I will say this. This was only distributed by A24. This was not an A24 production, but it is so funny how this film fits in seamlessly, like with like your Hereditaries or Midsummers, and the fact that it's not an A24 production and they just distributed it. But, I think A24 may have saw this and be like, oh, this fits in right in with our stuff, so we'll get distribution rights on it. So, yeah. All right, next up is Shelley's favorite segment, and possibly everyone out there's favorite segment, Voices from Beyond. And this is where Shelley shares any thoughts that maybe we got. I have no idea. I don't think we got a lot, Shelley.
Not on this one, no.
Maybe I should have prefaced it with saying it's everyone else's favorite if no one gave us anything.
It's hard because we do sometimes at the beginning of the season we always try to find movies that are free streaming. We want everyone to be able to pick up the movie, but not everyone can afford the rentals or the streaming.
Yeah.
And is it as much to buy a movie as it is to rent it sometimes? But I don't want to own Saint Maud. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
But we did get a couple comments, and I don't know if I know Sherry watched it. She didn't formally give me a comment, but I can tell you her thoughts on it.
Okay, cool.
Or she can come out here and maybe tell us her thoughts right now.
Go get her.
She
phone a friend. We got our shit together.
And I don't know. I know Quinlan. You probably watched it with your wife. Has she seen Saint Maud with you or?
Yeah, she has, and I will say, so she loves anything that is religious horror. Like Exorcism of Emily Rose is one of her favorite movies. So yeah, she definitely enjoyed this movie, but for exactly the reasons we've talked about. It's that that balance of faith and obsession, and then of course that the person who's really awful gets punished in the end. We always enjoy that.
Yeah. Okay, so there we go. We got Quinlan's wife's thoughts on
totally
Saint Maud. We had at Ray Medina 83 on Instagram say these A24 movies are hit or miss for me. This one was hitting till the end though. The story kept me interested and had great cinematography along with the good dialogue. It took me a minute to realize that the story took place in England and not in Coney Island, New York. I was bummed when I realized what Maud was going against was not supernatural but her own mind. But then again, mental illness and past trauma can be a horrific thing on its own. At least that's how I interpreted the story. I give it 3.5 stabs. Hope you guys are doing well and look forward to the next movie. Thanks, Ray.
Yeah,
We're
Ray.
looking forward
Thanks,
to the
buddy.
next movie too.
Yeah. Maybe you'll be dash cam and we'll get Ray on
Ray
it.
on
Yeah.
And then @X on TikTok said, so good, but definitely hard to watch. And that was
very uncomfortable.
Their thoughts. And then Sherry watched it back in 2021. It was on your list, Quinlan.
There you go.
She wrote, well, that was creepy. Very single white female meets misery with a religious twist. I would have loved to know more of the backstory, but well done overall.
Nice.
Interesting take on it.
Yeah. I can see those comparisons. When I watch this movie, I think of Rosemary's Baby or even like Taxi Driver. Like, what was it? Something Bickle. I forget his first name, but him just like spiraling. Travis Bickle. Thank you. But him just spiraling. Like, I saw a lot of that in Maud in this movie. So that's a great comparison.
Yeah.
Good job, Sherry.
Thanks, Sherry. We put her we lock her in a closet during podcast recording. Mostly because the dog will attack anything that drives by the house.
She's the keeper of the dog.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on into loose ends. And this is where we bring any last thoughts or fun facts we have on the movie. So before I go with any of my stuff, Quinlan, did you have anything?
I'll only do one because I feel like I'm monopolizing with all of my excitement.
Please give us it all. We want it all. Yeah, go ahead.
The big takeaway, Rose Glass was 29, when she made this movie. And I think that there's a maturity and a control that she's showing as a director there that tells you she's somebody to watch for.
Yeah.
Love Lies Bleeding was extremely well reviewed this year. I haven't watched it yet. I feel guilty that I haven't gotten around to it. But that is a movie that is expected to kind of, like St. Maud did, clean up at a lot of the independent awards. Probably one to watch, given that Kristen Stewart's involved in that film, that you may see it sneak into some Oscar consideration.
Yeah.
But I love that Rose Glass sat down and said, let me make this really uncomfortable religious horror movie about two women. Like, the men in the story are so secondary. Like, they really are only there to create tension. And I think that, when we watch the evolution of horror, we want more young women making stories because we haven't heard as much from them over the course of the history of horror. And the broader the audience gets, the broader the filmmakers should get for who's creating those stories. So that's one of my big takeaways on this. Is I just love that this is a very singular voice. We have Ari Aster out there making these very unusual stories. I want somebody who's going to do the female version of that. Karen Kusama's a little bit old now. We need somebody who's in that next generation to kind of keep pushing the needle. So I get very excited about that kind of thing while I do my film student nerd and start to dig through all of what's that person doing now? And the only other thing I'll say here in terms of loose ends, I kept being reminded of how much I enjoy when religious horror really gets it right. And I think this movie really does. It nails the idea of what religious horror should be, not necessarily like the tropes of here's a priest. I mean, I know it's on your list. Y'all are going to talk about it, but like Exorcist Believer.
I haven't even seen it yet. I'm waiting for the pod. It's a very different approach to how we relate to religion. So yeah, I love that Rose Glass is out there and that she's going to be, the champion. I've got two daughters. I have a daughter who's 17. I have a daughter who's about to be 11. I want there to be great female filmmakers that they can see making things in this genre that I love so much. I agree 1,000%. I think, especially in the horror genre, the more people at the table with a fair chance to make these movies, the better movies we're going to get. There's so many of the old hashed out stuff that we can see before the genre gets dead. So I think when you bring in people, you bring in females, you bring in people from different backgrounds, we're just going to get different ideas and different stories. So, I look forward to what the future has for horror. I think the stories will just get better down the road.
Also, Mike Flanagan is remaking Exorcist.
I know, thank God.
Oh, yeah.
Thank God.
I'm 50-50.
David Gordon Green or whatever.
I get it.
He butchered Halloween. We could have a whole podcast about that.
I get it.
Yes.
But I'm also still scared.
Okay.
Because the original Exorcist, and our podcast scored it very, 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 very high.
We love it.
We love the original Exorcist.
Collectively, yes.
But I love Mike Flanagan.
I do.
So
Flanagan's the best.
Yeah.
Flanagan is, I mean,
I
have
still
you all
gotta see
seen Midnight Mass?
I've not. I'm
What is
such a complete Midnight Mass on Netflix.
Yeah, I gotta see that stuff.
I'm such a completist, and I can't get through Haunting.
Oh,
2.
Bly Manor.
Bly
Haunted-
Manor.
yeah.
I can't get through it.
Haunting a Hill House, perfect.
Right.
We talked
I've
about
turned
that.
on Bly Manor twice now,
Oh yeah.
and I get held up.
Mm.
And I'm such a completist. I know I don't need it to continue on to Midnight Mass, but something in my head will not let me continue on until I get through Bly Manor. It's like I'm punishing myself from great things because my brain will be like, well, you never watched Bly Manor.
You're puring your soul, so you're now worth
punishing
it.
myself.
Yeah. Subjecting yourself to the pain.
Me and Maud are one and the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, just put some tacks in your shoes and hit play. You'll get through it. You know.
I'll let you guys know how that goes later.
Perfect. Can't wait. Shelly, did you have any fun stuff or any last
no,
thoughts?
I don't.
Okay. I do have some fun facts I'm going to run through real quick here. So Rose Glass originally wrote Maud with a more explicit backstory, but removed it at the final draft as she found it too similar to Carrie, saying in early drafts the character's backstory was quite different. She had a very extreme religious upbringing, went to Catholic school, all that stuff. But it just felt like a story I had seen before, and I wasn't one I was particularly interested in retelling. So originally there was some more on Maud, but she made it much more abrupt.
So now we know whose fault it is.
Yeah, Rose. Another fun fact, during the scene where Maud is being spoken to from God, it is in Welsh, but not only that, it is voiced by Moyfred Clark, who plays Maud. They just recorded her lines, and they modulated it and slowed it down, so the person who's speaking Welsh in that moment is actually Moyfred herself, which makes another
Makes sense, yeah.
another thing where she's speaking to herself. It's all in her head. So why not have Moyfred do that line?
Well, they didn't give it to us on a platter.
I know. We found out about it later. My fun facts.
You're telling me your fun fact.
All right, last one is so the chest compression scene with the gentleman was born from a real account of one of Rose Glass's friends who was a nurse. This woman worked in the ICU for people with lung difficulties. One patient had a major operation on his chest with a massive incision down the middle. He went into cardiac arrest, and she called the crash team and began compressions. But because he was so delicate, and the incision burst open, and her hands went inside his chest, and he died. So
Ugh.
Rose's friend told her the story. Rose asked her if she could use it in the film, and she said yes. So that is a real-life account of a nurse.
Wow.
Good Lord. Poor lady.
Frightening.
And now it's on the
I'd
movie
quit the
screen for her to
industry.
now it's on the movie screen for her to relive if she's into
Deuces.
this movie. So yeah, those are my fun facts. And with that brings us to the end of our episode on Saint Maud. And just like all of our episodes, we need to pick a new movie. So next up is Wheel of Death. And before we get to spin our beautiful wheel, we have to reach in a bag and grab a replacement movie. And Shelley's in the midst of that, so let me open up my app. And Shelley is unfolding the paper. Can you hear it?
Ripped it.
You ripped it.
I was trying to be silly.
We like silly. You're a silly gilly.
Snapped it just on the end there.
So what do we got, Shelley?
We have Shelley pick.
Is this the last movie?
Probably, because I've got all my movies on the wheel this year.
So
31.
Oh, that Rob Zombie flick.
Yeah.
31 is now being on the wheel for Saint Maud. We are okaying it. And before I spin the great wheel of death, I'm going to read off the 10 movies. First up, we have The Exorcist Believer, 31, Dash Cam, The Wailing, Ringu, The Babadook, Children of the Corn, The Shining, X, and finally, Dead Snow. So, Quinlan, question.
I still have movies in the bag.
You do?
Triangle.
Triangles? Okay, Triangle.
Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, or is that your movie?
No.
Did you take Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things?
That's probably yours.
So
I had that last year, but I think that's yours this year. So
there you go.
But Quinlan, if we had to land on any of those movies, which would you want us to land on?
So this is always the tough thing with podcasts, right? Is like sometimes you want people to talk about the movies that you dislike the most.
Yeah.
So that would be Exorcist Believer. But I will say, so as part of our yet unshared 50 movie list for this year, we watched The Wailing, and it's fantastic. So I hope for your viewing, though it is a bit long, I hope you get to watch The Wailing.
That's actually a fan submission too, so we would get
from another podcast. Right?
Yeah, from Tim from Horror Flicks and Guitar Picks. So yeah, if we land on that, we'll be having a guest on that episode. So, all right, guys, are you ready? So we do the chant. I'm sure you've heard it before. You're gonna join along, right? We're not gonna be weirdos by ourselves over here, Quinlan.
I mean, we can be weirdos by ourselves. We don't force anyone to do anything.
I am prepared to contribute.
Yay! He's on the team. He's Team Wheel of Death. All right, so here we go. Wheel of Death. Wheel of Death. Wheel of Death. Wheel of Death. And we have a classic, Children of the Corn.
Isn't that a submission?
I think it is.
Is it Matt's?
No, wait. No, I think Matt was The Shining. I think.
Okay.
Who was Children of the Corn? We will look at our list if you submitted Children of the Corn to us and figure out who submitted it. But yeah, we got Children of the Corn next. Actually, you know what? Ian's been bugging me to watch Children of the Corn.
That's perfect. Maybe we'll have Ian on.
Maybe we'll have an 11-year-old on a podcast.
And this is the original.
This is the original, yes. Yeah. So Shelly's going to look up where it's showing and let you guys know.
It is on Prime Video. It
Prime
is
again.
on Shudder, Tubi.
Okay,
no
cool.
excuses. It's on Tubi.
Nice.
If you have AMC Plus, you can rent or buy on most things. Plex, Sling, Philo.
It's available.
It's out there. It's on Tubi, most importantly, which is free for anyone to use.
So before we say bye, I just Quinlan, thanks again for joining us today. It was awesome to get your perspective. And I know you said you do the movie watch stuff. Is there anything you want to plug and people can follow you guys and watch these movies with you?
Gosh, not really, but I will say I am on Letterboxd. So if you want to find me on Letterboxd,
so am I.
I'm a big.
They should be friends.
It is.
We're gonna follow each other.
Yeah, exactly. So I am Quinlan Deegan. QuinlanDegen. You can find me on Letterboxd. And we do keep our list there on Letterboxd if anybody's looking for it.
Cool.
I will add coming soon to Shudder if it's not there already. There's a little Irish horror movie that came out this year called Oddity.
Okay.
And it is fantastic. It's a perfect fit for like any Halloween watching, and it's not too much. So if you're an audience member maybe who doesn't like the overly violent films, this one would still be good, but it's a good spooky house 90-minute movie. So one I definitely recommend.
Cool. We'll keep our eyes peeled for Oddity.
For sure.
That sounds like fun. It's funny because A Violent Nature is also going to be streaming on Shudder here soon.
Yeah, that's not for everybody.
Complete opposite to what you were just saying.
Yeah, if you like really uncomfortable physical moments and a lot of downtime, watch In a Violent Nature.
Yeah. So there you go. Shudder likes to balance it out with, the taste of life. So there we go.
Yeah.
Thanks, Shudder.
Awesome. All right, guys. So next episode drops October 2nd. Don't miss out and tune in until the end of the season, where we'll be taking all the films we watch this season and have them battled out in our deathmatch tournament. If you listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give us a rating and review if you like what we do. You can find us on Facebook and TikTok by searching Little Bracket of Horrors, and on Instagram by typing @Little Bracket of Horrors. We also have merch available at tpublic.com. Just search for our name in their website search bar or pay attention to our socials for a direct link. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I'm Derek.
I'm Shelly.
And I'm Quinlan.
And we will catch you on the other side. We did it. Quinlan, thanks so much, dude. That was fun.
Hey, thanks, y'all. This was great. I was looking forward to it since I found out it was going to happen, and gave me an excuse to watch St. Maud again.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, no, we love your perspective. This is going to be great. We'll have you on again someday, too.
Hey,
for sure.
Anytime. Happy to contribute, and I am sure that my wife would also be happy to if you need to expand out into, the salty lady. territory. If you have to do a special episode about why Halloween 4 is really good, she is a proponent
Ooh,
of
okay.
that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, hopefully down the road I run into you in person.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you on the phone. Yeah. Take care. Congratulations on the new baby.
Yeah, I
you.
mean, right around the
Dude.
corner.
Any minute
That's
now.
crazy.
Yeah.
And how fitting that you're having like a baby during spooky season.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's great. It's inconvenient, but great.
Yeah, right. It ruins this year's. Thank kids.
Yeah. Do you have a name picked out?
So we don't know the gender. So if it is a boy, it'll be Killian. That has been picked out. Like Killian Murphy, spelled the same way.
Yeah.
If it's a girl, though, it's still, we have a few candidates. We're going to lean towards an Italian name if it's a girl, but it's undecided yet.
Oh, nice. Well, again, congratulations times 1,000.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
And well, thanks again, bud. And
Thanks,
we
Tom.
will hopefully catch you on the other side.
Sounds good. Talk to you later.
Tagline.
All right,
Thanks,
bye.
Quinlan.
Awesome. It was a good get.
What do I push to stop?
You're gonna hit the stop or record button. It doesn't matter.
Right here?
Yeah, that's fine.
Red record button.
Yeah. Check. Checkers fries. Check. Let's make sure.
Fun.
Okay, good.
So disappointing.
Let's close this window. I had my Spotify up. I don't want it just randomly playing.
Recording.
Yes, it's currently on. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna get a water.
Water.
For you. Yeah.
Derek smells like monkey toes. Derek's a boy. Ew, boys. Why y'all so like weird? And like, why do you act the way you do when you're single? I need answers. And if you can't give me answers, then fuck off. They're little babies. They're just babies. What do you have against babies? You just let him know, and your phone's plugged in.
Yeah, it is.
All right, I just messaged to see if he is ready. I have his number though.
Okay, cool.
Good volume.
It's really punching in.
Yeah, sounds good.
Hello?
Quinlan.
What's up?
Hey, bud. How are you?
Oh, doing swell. How about yourself?
Nice. Thanks for agreeing to be on the podcast today, dude.
Oh, I am excited. My 10-year-old is particularly excited. She thinks I'm going to be super famous now. So it's good energy to start the experience with, right?
Awesome. Yeah, she's definitely. I mean, we're rated R, but like, yeah, she could probably listen to us.
How old your daughter?
So she'll be 11 in like 2 weeks, and she even and she's not a fan of scary things. She said, "Oh, that's so cool. Too bad I won't really be able to listen to it."
Well, my son, who's 11 years old, he listens to it every night to go to bed because Shelly's voice is white noise for him. So he'll fall asleep to you now. So there you go.
Perfect. I love it.
Yeah. We are surprisingly popular with 11-year-olds because Ian's friend at school also listens to us. And I talked to his mom. I was like, we talk about adult stuff. We use adult language. She's like, it's cool. I'm like, okay, fair warning. Crazy.
Yeah,
kids.
that's that stretch, right? It's the transitional, I will say to my daughter, okay, you can, we watched Planes, Trains, and Automobiles last Christmas. I was like, there is one scene in this movie that makes it rated R, and you can sit through it so long as you understand this is not an acceptable way to speak when you're in public. And when it happened, she just mouth open, just looking at the rest of us like, what is this? I'm like,
what is this?
See, welcome to R-rated films.
Yeah, exactly.
A whole new world is coming your way.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, you can hear us okay too, right?
I can. Yeah, I hear you all great.
Perfect.
Yeah. Do you want to kick off then?
I can kick it off.
Yeah, you want to?
Yeah,
Cool.
I can do it.
Awesome. And then
I have to hit the button, don't I?
yeah, you just hit which one? This one.
I got it.
You hit that one. Yeah.
Is this a new? Did you listen to Tyler's new?
No, so I haven't uploaded that yet. I think I'm gonna use it for next season.
Oh, okay,
we'll finish it off with this, and
All right.
then we'll take his for next year.
All right, cool.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.